3 miraculous ways to see divine order manifest in your life through prophetic trust and prayer. In the heart of Stowford, nestled amongst the whispering hills of England, Margaret felt a surge of divine energy coursing through her as her faithful community gathered at the stone church of St. Alaric. The rustic wooden beams echoed with prayers as the flickering candlelight danced rhythmically, illuminating tear-streaked faces and hopeful hearts. It was a night like no other, wrapped in the promise of miracles. Every soul in the room could feel it, the palpable presence of the Holy Spirit wrapping around them, breathing new life into their simultaneous hopes and fears. The moment was electric, prayers woven together like threads, stitching the fabric of a community bound by faith. Margaret, with her heart brimming with love and vulnerability, sought not just healing for her ailing husband, Thomas, and their eldest son, David, but a glimpse of God's divine order breaking through their despair. As words of prayer filled the air, a shimmering light began to swirl within the hallowed walls, blurring the boundaries of the earthly realm. Margaret gasped, her breath hitching in anticipation. Something miraculous was unfolding here. A vision, a glimpse of her husband leaping, vibrant and joyous, his laughter echoing through the fields. And there was David, chasing butterflies with wild abandon, free from the chains of his illness. The stony heaviness of her heart lifted, hope flooded her very being. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the fervent prayers crescendoed, Margaret felt a ripple of warmth settle over her shoulders. Her eyes widened as she locked onto the face of a fellow congregant, a woman known for her unshakable faith, whose expression turned from assuredness to shock. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Whispers turned to gasps as others sensed the divine presence too. But doubt loomed in the shadows, crashing into Margaret's radiant vision when she shared her hopes with her family. They urged her to stay realistic, their skepticism cutting through her delicate dreams like a knife. "We need practical solutions," they exclaimed, shaking her resolve. The dichotomy of faith opened a chasm in her heart, leaving her wading through uncertainty. Yet just as surrender tugged at her spirit, a storm gathered outside. Thunder rumbled, masking the solemn rhythm of prayer that echoed through St. Alaric's altar. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the church, illuminating every corner, as if God himself had descended. Margaret felt her heart race, the air crackling with divine energy. As the congregation prayed with fervency, the impossible happened. Her husband, once weak and desolate, stood up, his body infused with vitality. The walls reverberated with joy, laughter erupting like a sweet release as he embraced Margaret tightly. Was it real? Or merely a figment of hope? Margaret's heart surged with faith, knitting the tapestry of miracles among the villagers. Each shared story of healing ignited new anticipation, transformations beyond imagination unfolding amidst them. But as Margaret rejoiced in this inexplicable moment, she knew this was just the beginning. She sensed the stirring of something greater, something powerful on the horizon. As the village bathed in newfound hope, the questions loomed large: what awaited them? Would belief remain steadfast, or cost them their contentment? A divine mystery hung in the air as Margaret resolved to embrace the unfolding journey, her heart aligned with the greater plan that was beginning to reveal itself. Could this be the dawn of a radical new faith in Stowford? The world seemed poised for transformation, and Margaret could hardly contain her anticipation for what would come next. The warm glow of twilight wrapped around Stowford, washing the village in a tender luce, embracing its inhabitants with a gentle reminder of hope. Inside the stone church, an atmosphere electric with anticipation lingered. Margaret could feel the energy still coursing through her, an echo of the miracle that had just unfolded. She turned to her husband, newly vibrant, his eyes bright with a joy that had been absent for far too long. "Margaret, I felt something that night," Thomas spoke, his voice steady yet filled with awe. He grasped her hands tightly, gazing into her eyes as if he could see into the very depths of her soul. It was as if the very air had shifted, revealing a path meant only for us. Do you believe it? The church filled with soft murmurs, whispers of miracles shared among the villagers. Margaret's heart swelled with gratitude. They had all come together, believing in something beyond their mortal comprehension. The presence of God had mingled with their prayers, and faith had kindled a fire that would not easily dim. A familiar voice broke through the chatter. Sister Agnes, her steadfast demeanor barely containing her bubbling spirit. This is just the start, dear ones. As each of us clings to our faith, the walls around our hearts will crumble. She stood taller, the light from the candles dancing upon her silver hair. Heaven's gates are opening for each of us, there are miraculous blessings waiting. Margaret could see the flicker of hope ignite stronger in her neighbor's eyes. It resounded in their hearts, a collective recognition that something extraordinary was taking place, something that transcended their mundane struggles. She longed to share this fervor, to shout from the hill how beautiful the mercy of God could truly be. But even within the blaring joy, doubt elbowed its way back into Margaret's mind. She imagined the heavy conversations with loved ones who bore skepticism close to their chest. How easily their fears could drown the tiniest flame of faith. But what if? She thought, a shadow creeping over her heart. Suddenly, it felt as though the very rafters of the church quivered under the weight of her thoughts. Was this miracle an unfolding of God's promise, or a mere spark to keep their dreams alive until the rain returned? Then, as if to answer her unvoiced question, a gust of wind rushed through the church, catching the flickering candles off guard, causing shadows to dance wildly. The congregation drew back, eyes wide, as an ethereal calm replaced the breeze. Margaret felt a stirring within, the urge to turn outward, toward her community. Let us proclaim our faith, here and now. Let our voices rise together. With renewed conviction, she raised her voice above the whispering silence, inviting all to join her in a chorus of strength, of fortitude, of undying love. One by one, the villagers added their voices to the swell, each singing their truth, each proclaiming gratitude and trust in the face of uncertainty. A mighty choir of hope echoed against the soaring stone walls. The very atmosphere seemed to vibrate with divine approval, affirming their desires, wrapping them all in a warm embrace. Margaret believed in that moment they were not just participants in a single miracle but stewards of unending miracles yet to come. The journey of faith was just beginning, a road woven with trials, tribulations, and triumphs still waiting to be revealed. As the evening drew deeper, Margaret's heart swelled with expectation. A realization dawned: this was not merely an isolated miracle, but a ripple effect, a positioning of souls invited to believe more fiercely. What awaited them on this journey of faith? What divine wisdom would they uncover as hearts twined together, trusting in the unseen? Margaret sensed the stirring of a greater wave, ready to wash over Stowford. And with that, she closed her eyes, breathing deeply in worship, knowing the answers would emerge in their own sacred time. As the last echoes of their hymn faded into the soft embrace of twilight, a hush fell over the church. Margaret opened her eyes and surveyed the faces around her. Some were filled with joy, others with awe, but all wore expressions of newfound resolve. It was as if the act of singing together had carved a space for God to work, a conduit for blessings to flow into their lives. Thomas squeezed her hand, drawing her attention back to him. Did you feel that? It's as if something holy has been set in motion, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. Margaret nodded, her heart racing. They had touched the very fabric of the divine, and she could sense it vibrating with the promise of what was yet to come. Sister Agnes took center stage again, her voice steady as she declared, "Tonight, we shall not only celebrate what has been the marvelous work of God, but let us also prepare to receive even greater miracles ahead." A rippling cheer of agreement surged through the congregation. Hope had become a tangible force, lifting spirits higher than they had ever dared to imagine. Yet, deep within loving hearts, the fear of the unknown still lingered. Margaret could feel it, a shadow that hovered at the edges of faith, threatening to choke the bright flames they had kindled. What if the miracles they sought came at a price too steep? What if unseen struggles lay ahead that could split their fragile bond? As if sensing her turmoil, Thomas turned to her once more. "Margaret, we cannot let fear dominate our faith. We must hold on to the truth that we've been chosen for this journey. His voice, infused with sincerity, pierced through her doubts, invigorating her spirit. Just then, a warmth enveloped the church, a golden light cascading from above. People gasped, eyes widening in astonished wonder. It was a tangible presence, a testament that the divine had drawn near. Throughout the glowing light, a single thought reverberated through the hearts of many: trust in the journey ahead. Margaret raised her hands, as though drawing the very light towards her. "Let us pray," she exclaimed. The congregation followed, heads bowed, and hands clasped, hearts quietly lifting their thoughts to God. "Lord," she began, "in this holy moment, we lay before you our fears and our dreams. Help us to see with your eyes, to trust wholeheartedly in your path. Whether it brings trials or triumphs, remind us of your unfailing love." As they spoke, a soft murmuring resonated, a chorus of personal prayers, each tailored with longing and hope. And in that sacred space, Margaret felt a shift. The air became lighter, as if weighty burdens were being lifted. For every whispered prayer, there came a sense of release, of assurance that God had already paved the way ahead. From within the depths of their communal prayer, divine revelations began to arise. One villager, Anne, spoke up, "I feel called to give of my time to help the needy." Another, young Samuel, proclaimed, "I see visions of healing in our future." Each declaration wove a richer tapestry of hope for Stowford. Yet amidst the rising excitement, Margaret felt a small twist of uncertainty coiling in her chest. What if we're wrong? What if this fervor fades? But one glance could quell those thoughts. The glimmers of faith reflected in every face told her something she had not realized until then. God's promises were never limited by human understanding. They were at once perfect and mysterious, filled with beauty and testing. And who was she to hold back the flame of collective belief? Margaret glanced around, her heart expanding with courage. What we have begun tonight is but a flicker. Let us fan the flames of our trust together. Let us not just survive this journey but thrive within it. As the last prayer echoed softly, a stirring sense of expectation filled the air. Margaret knew the wave they had ignited would not merely wash through Stowford, it would roll far beyond, reaching places only he could see. And just as shadows began to creep in once more, she could almost hear a gentle whisper amidst the fading light, beckoning her to remain steadfast in trusting the unseen. What revelations awaited them next? What would it mean to let go and surrender fully to God's plan? The answers were veiled in mystery, yet on the horizon of faith, hope shimmered brightly. The golden light that had enveloped the church began to settle, casting a soft glow on the faces of the congregation. Hearts still raced, and the energy that had been unleashed lingered like the sweetest aroma. Margaret sensed a divine hush, an expectancy that hung in the air, waiting for a spark. She looked at Thomas, his eyes shimmering with unwavering faith, and realized that this moment was not just an isolated encounter, it was a beginning, a launching point for a journey that would lead deeper into the mysteries of God's love. Sister Agnes, with a twinkle of inspiration, declared, "Let each of us share what we have received in this moment. What is it that the Spirit is revealing to you?" Margaret felt her pulse quicken. What had God placed on her heart? With a soft but firm voice, she shared, "I believe we are called to trust in His timing, to move boldly even when we can't see the plans laid out before us." A murmur of agreement filled the room, and Margaret noticed heads nodding, hearts resonating with her words. The excitement was palpable, and she felt the fears begin to dissipate once more. In a corner, old Mr. Jenkins raised his gnarled hand. I've been so afraid of losing what little I have. But tonight, I feel him telling me it's time to give." The thrill in his words ignited a wave of laughter and applause. Each person shared their revelation, each sharing unraveling another thread of divine purpose. This was the miracle, it was happening right before their eyes. Then, unexpectedly, the church door creaked open, and in stepped a stranger. Cloaked in worn fabric and bearing the heavy scent of travel, he halted at the entrance. Silence fell like a shroud. His eyes, bright and hopeful yet shadowed by hardship, scanned the room. "Excuse me," he spoke, his voice echoing softly amid the silence, "I overheard you call on the divine for help." I come seeking refuge, a place to rest. The air shimmered with tension as all eyes turned to Sister Agnes, who stepped forward with compassion radiating from her being. "Brother," she said warmly, "you are welcome here. Let us embrace you. You are not just seeking shelter, you are also part of our family now." Margaret watched as the congregation rallied around the stranger, enveloping him in their warmth. She felt the palpable shift in the atmosphere. Their unified hope had summoned love into their midst. This was the holy dance of giving, of sharing burdens and blessings alike. With every gathering of hands and whispered prayers, she realized the miracle unfolded in their midst would touch not only their community but would ripple into the lives of those beyond Stowford. As the stranger found solace in the embrace of the church, Margaret's heart stirred with deep longing. What if, in welcoming him, we opened the door to something even greater? She mused. A sacred energy propelled through the sanctuary, tightening the threads of faith they had begun to weave. And yet, there remained a whisper of caution in her heart. Was this the beginning of their greater calling? What were they truly being prepared for? As Margaret pondered these questions, she felt the creeping shadows of uncertainty returning. Each light they had kindled shone fiercely brightly, but with every miracle came challenges that had yet to be faced. The congregation began to sing once more, a new hymn growing in power, swelling in expectation. Margaret joined in, her voice rising above the others, alight with newfound passion. God, lead us deeper, lead us where we cannot see. When you show us the way, may our hearts follow without faltering. In that moment, with every chorus that erupted forth, she understood that their journey had officially begun. Yet still, a mystery hung in the air, unwrapped and shimmering. What challenges lay in the path before this united body of faith? What would they need to sacrifice to accept the greater plans laid out for them? The answers beckoned like distant stars, twinkling, waiting to be grasped. The music swelled, filling every nook and cranny of the church, harmonizing beautifully with the rising tide of expectation. They sang not just songs, but prayers wrapped in melody. Margaret could feel the vibrations of hope intertwining with their voices, a collective heartbeat echoing promises of what was yet to unfold. As the strains of the hymn faded, Sister Agnes stood at the forefront, her eyes shining like beacons. My dear friends, we are not just here to share in our joys. In our community, we need to bring our struggles before God, too. Her words resonated deeply, and Margaret felt a shift within her spirit. It was one thing to celebrate blessings, yet it held a different weight to confront fears and uncertainties together. A young woman, Emily, with tears glistening in her eyes, spoke up. I've been battling loneliness, feeling isolated even among friends. But tonight, I feel God asking me to reach out and embrace connection. Her vulnerability drew nods of affirmation and touches of hands. In that moment, they shared not only the joy of welcome but also the courage to face their struggles, creating a sacred bond that bound them closer. Margaret looked around at her family in faith. The power of honesty filled the room, wrapping them in an unbreakable bond. Each person's struggles, spoken aloud, became stepping stones for them all. The stranger stood quietly off to the side, a humbled observer to this sacred exchange of lives. It reminded Margaret of how the love of God could open up countless avenues for grace, often through the channels of shared pain. The atmosphere shifted once again as the stranger took a step forward, eyes brightening. I am Aaron, he introduced himself, his voice steadier now. My travels have been long and difficult, but I come seeking more than just a place to rest. I've lost everything but my faith, and along the way, I've learned that generosity is the balm for a weary soul. A hushed awe coursed through the congregation. Could it be? Was this moment not just an encounter of needs met but the birth of mutual blessing? Margaret's heart raced once more, an echo of divine purpose illuminating her thoughts. Perhaps welcoming Aaron was not the end of their journey but a catalyst for greater acts in the community and beyond. With a firm resolve, Mr. Jenkins spoke, if he brings the gift of faith, then I have no doubt we can share what little I have. This act of selflessness triggered a ripple effect. People began to offer food, clothes, and their time, each gift accompanied by the spirit of shared abundance. Margaret joined the flurry of movement, her hands trembling with excitement. They were witnessing the sacred truth that true giving often comes from the depths of sacrifice. They were being challenged, called to embody the very love they celebrated in their worship. As the buzz of activity surrounded her, Margaret was struck with an overwhelming sense of urgency, a feeling that time was of the essence. Together, they were on the precipice of something glorious, and the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place. Yet, looming questions remained, each one a doorway to the unknown. What would the next steps require of them? How would Aaron become part of the tapestry they were weaving together? The sound of bustling conversations drummed in her ears, lively yet infused with an intangible weight, a sacred moment poised on the edge of transformation, much like the dawn approaching after a long night. The night may still be dark, but our hearts are ablaze with possibility, Margaret declared, her spirit ignited with hope. In that moment, the church lights flickered as if echoing her words. Could this be a sign? Could faith and action together spark a divine manifestation in their midst? As Margaret contemplated the unfolding journey ahead, her heart brimmed with anticipation. Together, as one, they were ready to step into the sacred mystery that lay ahead. Tomorrow would challenge them anew, but in her spirit, she felt a stirring. What adventures waited for this community of faith? What transformations would they witness as they stepped boldly into the unknown? The warmth of unity radiated through the room as they busily shared. Each exchange, filled with tender gratitude, created a symphony, a powerful testament to their intertwined destinies. Margaret stood marveling at the transformation unfolding before her. It felt as if the very air sparkled with divine anticipation, echoing the whispers of heaven. Sister Agnes moved among them, her presence a calming force. She embraced each person, encouraging their expressions of generosity. Remember, she said softly, what we offer today plants seeds for tomorrow's harvest. Her words hung in the air like fragrant incense, each syllable enveloped in truth. Margaret caught sight of Aaron. He stood slightly apart, absorbing the love being poured into him. His face reflected both gratitude and confusion, as if he were trying to grasp a truth so vast it left no room for doubt. She inched closer, her heart aching with empathy. How does it feel to be part of this? She asked, hoping to bridge the gap of his journey and their path ahead. I never expected warmth after the cold, he confessed, teetering between hope and disbelief. But I can feel something. It's like a spark inside me, urging me to discover what's next. His words felt like an echo of her own spirit's call, and in that moment, Margaret sensed their shared longing, a quest to find deeper purpose. The pile of goods grew higher. As they passed items to one another, laughter weaved through conversations. In these moments, the burdens began to lift, replaced by the lightness of shared burdens. Emily approached Aaron with a woven blanket. You'll need this, she said, her eyes shining with kindness. The simple act spoke volumes, demonstrating the love that blossomed through action. Then, as silence settled over the church momentarily, Aaron turned his gaze toward the altar. Your faith, it's inspiring, he murmured, almost to himself. What is it that binds you all together? How do you keep the flame alive? Margaret felt the weight of his words. They were both question and invitation, beckoning her to explore their connection further. It's the understanding that we are all part of a bigger story, she began, a story where love reigns and every act, no matter how small, draws us closer to God's purpose. Suddenly, it struck her the shared journey would not just impact Aaron but transform every heart in that room, including her own. As she voiced her realization, others nodded, the affirmation rippling through the congregation like a wave. Something profound was awakening, a community not just bound by faith but enriched by shared experience, ready to be on fire for every journey that lay ahead. Their surroundings resonated with a divine vibrancy, a spirit of anticipation charged within the group. Margaret could sense new threads weaving into their tapestry, each prayer and shared moment fortifying their resolve. But with the excitement simmering, shadows of doubt crept in. What if their unity wasn't enough? What if their sacrifices fell short? The vulnerability that had strengthened them now posed questions that hung heavily. She closed her eyes, drawing in a deep breath. In that quiet moment of reflection, she began to whisper a prayer not just for comfort, but for courage, for guidance, for the strength to meet whatever awaited them. As she opened her eyes, the church lights flickered once again, an undeniable sign that something was shifting. Those flickering lights felt like a call to action, a divine invitation urging them deeper into this new phase. What would unfold as they embraced this path forward? Would they face trials that would shake their newfound unity? And what awaited them in the world beyond? The answers lingered, just out of reach, yet pulsing with promise. The dawn was breaking. Challenges awaited, but the light ahead was undeniable. What stories of faith would they write together in the days to come? What sacred experiences awaited them as they stepped into the unknown? As the lights flickered softly, a hush fell over the congregation. Margaret's heart raced with anticipation. Each flicker felt like a gentle whisper, urging them all to push beyond what they thought they knew. What came next would require more than just their efforts. It demanded faith, a bold step into the unknown. Margaret glanced around at the faces illuminated by the warm, glowing lights, seeing hope reflected in their eyes. Sister Agnes stood tall, her hands raised slightly, inviting silent prayer. The air thickened with expectation, as if heaven itself were bending near, eager to listen to their hearts' cries. "Let us join together in prayer," Sister Agnes urged, her voice steady yet soft. "We will call forth clarity and strength, seeking guidance from above." The congregation bowed their heads, and a chorus of soft whispers filled the air, weaving a sacred tapestry of intent. Margaret closed her eyes, allowing the quiet envelop her like a comforter. She felt the rush of emotion rise within her. Love, hope, and a flicker of fear danced together. Would they truly be strong enough to navigate what lay ahead? "Lord," she breathed softly, "show us the way. Let us be vessels of your peace and strength." Tears pricked at her eyes as she surrendered her worries, allowing trust to wash over her heart. In that space of prayer, an unexpected silence settled, punctuated only by the gentle stirrings of those around her. Suddenly, Margaret felt a wave of warmth flood her, an inexplicable peace seeping deep into her bones. It was as if a divine presence had encircled them, drawing close to witness their surrender. After what felt like an eternity, Sister Agnes reopened her eyes. "We have cast our nets wide in prayer," she declared, her voice resonating through the quiet. "Now, expect the harvest. God sees each seed we plant in faith." A surge of energy rippled through the room as the shared spirit transformed uncertainty into hope. People began to murmur affirmations, their souls ignited by the same truth: they were not alone. Together, they were a force of love and purpose, ready to face whatever awaited them. In that fervor, Aaron whispered to Margaret, "What's next? How do we even begin?" There was that spark again, the one she noticed earlier. It was a flame urging him forward, just as it did for her. "Next," she replied, "we share our stories. Each of us brings a piece of the puzzle. And through those pieces, the greater picture reveals itself." Feeling emboldened, Margaret stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm. "Can we each share a moment where we felt God's presence? It might just light the path for us all." One by one, people began to share their stories: a child healed, a comforting presence during trials, the rediscovery of lost faith. With every testimony, the energy shifted, hope blossomed, entwined with faith. Margaret felt herself smiling as she listened. There was something radiantly beautiful about the rawness of their experiences, each one a brushstroke revealing the divine artist at work. And then came a powerful declaration from Emily, tears in her eyes. "Even when I doubted, faith carved a way through the dark. It was His light that led me here." The room erupted with applause and shouts of agreement. It was a chorus of collective recognition that deepened their bond and understanding. As the last amen echoed, Margaret felt the shift. Real transformation was rooted in every shared truth spoken that day. Yet, amidst all this, her heart fluttered with unease. What awaited them was still veiled in mystery. They had poured out their hearts, but how would their newfound unity navigate the challenges swirling on the horizon? As she pondered this, the church bells rang melodically, bells that seemed to resonate not just within the walls but in their very spirits. Each chime beckoned them to action, a reminder that their stories were just the beginning. But who else might join them? What divine plans lay in wait that could only be unlocked through their faith and prayers? The next chapter of their journey was drawing near, filled with promise, yet tender with the unknown. What would God reveal as they stepped out into the world, advancing in collective faith? The warmth that embraced the room lingered, a gentle reminder of the divine presence they had invoked together. Margaret felt a shift within herself, a stirring of something greater, something that beckoned her to step boldly into the path laid before them. "Let us take a moment," Aaron said, his voice cutting through a meditative silence, "to listen." His words hung in the air as everyone focused inward, giving space for the spirit to move. Time seemed to slow, each heartbeat resonating with expectation. Margaret could almost feel the vibrations of their collective faith enveloping them, a cocoon spun from hope and shared experiences. Everyone closed their eyes again, and in that sacred stillness, Margaret's mind drifted to the stories they had shared. The raw power of testimony had ignited something. Men and women, young and old, had come alive with inspiration and readiness. But unraveling the next steps would require more than just stories, it would call for action. Margaret's thoughts lingered on the idea of divine action. What would it look like to step out in faith together? What if we organized a community outreach? She wondered aloud, interrupting the silence. We could share our stories beyond these walls, carry God's light into the neighborhood surrounding us. Encouragement sparked in several faces, nods of agreement rippling through the group. Sister Agnes smiled warmly at Margaret. "Yes. Let us extend our hands not just in this sacred space but into the world. As we share, grace multiplies." The room buzzed with new energy as people began tossing ideas around. They contemplated a food drive, a prayer walk, or even a day dedicated to serving those in need. Each idea came alive with possibility, like seedlings given sunlight. Margaret felt a swell of joy in her heart. This was what unity in faith looked like, people acting on the strength of their stories. Yet, a quiet apprehension tugged at her. Outside the safety of their gathering lay the challenges, the uncertainties of the world. Would they recognize God's guiding presence when faced with adversity? Before these thoughts could further entangle her, a stranger entered the church, a young woman with a gentle demeanor and weary eyes. Her presence caught everyone's attention. Instinctively, the room fell silent. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling, "I saw the light from across the street. I don't know why I'm here, but I need help." The honesty in her voice drew everyone in, like moths to a flame. Margaret felt her heart leap. Here was a moment, a divine appointment wrapped in vulnerability. Sister Agnes approached the woman, her expression compassionate. "You are welcome here. What weighs on your heart?" As the young woman shared her struggles, Margaret's spirit brimmed with compassion. Here they were, just as she had envisioned, a community rising to meet a need, ready to offer God's love in tangible ways. Yet, as she listened, she also sensed an undercurrent. The young woman mentioned a personal crisis, a challenge that felt insurmountable. Margaret's heart ached, and an inner voice prodded her to speak, to share her own moments of darkness where God had illuminated the way. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "I have been where you are. In moments of despair, God showed me His love through others. Together, we can help each other." The room surged with a palpable energy, life flowing in and around them. It felt as if heaven sighed in approval. As they prayed together, a sacred curtain lifted, and Margaret felt a glimpse of the divine truth that when they stepped out together, anchored by faith and love, miracles began to unfold. Yet, a vague shadow of doubt lingered. What other surprises awaited them on their journey? With her heart still racing, Margaret looked around the room, sensing that God was paving pathways they couldn't yet see. What would this next chapter look like? How would this unshakable unity transform their lives and the lives of those they sought to serve? A hush enveloped the room as the energy from their collective prayer settled like a whisper. The young woman's gaze shifted, wide and uncertain, as if she were testing the waters of hope. Margaret watched intently, her heart alive with expectation. Each moment pulsed with potential, including the silent promise that God was working in ways they might not immediately understand. "Thank you," the young woman finally said, her voice steadier now. "I can feel the love here." Margaret smiled, and with that affirmation, a spark flickered, a realization of the beauty in their gathering. They were not simply a group, they were a tapestry woven by God's hands, each thread essential in portraying the greater picture of his kingdom. As whispers of gratitude exchanged among the others, Aaron stepped forward again. Let us take a moment to reflect on what has just happened. A life touched, a heart opened. This is what our outreach can look like. Yes. The community chimed in. Margaret's mind raced. This was it. This was the divine link they had sought. Faith was not just a word, they were living it. Each idea they had shared moments ago became more than talk, it needed to manifest into action. A vision began to form in her heart, vibrant and alive. Let us start right now, Margaret urged gently. What if we prayed over her situation? We can be the arms of God reaching out to the brokenness in her life. The mood shifted to one of focused determination. They gathered around the young woman, a circle of faith and assurance forming. Hands clasped, hearts aligned, they became living vessels of hope. Margaret led the prayer, each word carefully chosen, a tapestry of faith encircling the desperate heart before them. Lord, she began, we stand here united as one body in Christ. We ask for your divine intervention. Bring peace and clarity to our sister. Let her feel your presence guiding her through this storm. With each whisper of prayer soaring upward, Margaret felt the room shift into the sacred. Tears began to fall, no longer of despair, but hope blossoming like flowers in the hardest ground. The young woman's shoulders relaxed, as if burdens she had carried were momentarily lifted. As they concluded, there was a silence, not one of emptiness, but of unity and grace. The young woman spoke again, her voice soft yet resolute. I can breathe now. Thank you. Margaret's heart soared. She looked around at the faces, illuminated by a shared light, each expression a testament to the power of faith in action. By offering themselves as instruments of God's love, they had not just changed the young woman's reality, they were transformed as well. We can do this. Someone shouted, igniting a wave of enthusiasm. An idea that had sprouted in her heart now felt like a raging fire, spreading through them all. Let us plan a dinner to invite our neighbors. Another suggested, excitement bubbling in their voices. From one humble prayer, a cascade of plans emerged. Their efforts took a life of their own, each idea a promise of connection, a possibility for divine intervention in each heart. Yet, beneath all the excitement, Margaret sensed a deeper call within. Their outreach was not merely about filling hungry stomachs or empty souls, it was about igniting the heart of a community, kindling the flames of faith. But the questions that hovered in her mind whispered anxiously, how could they sustain this momentum? What hurdles awaited them? As they knelt together in gratitude, Margaret realized that each prayer, each act of kindness, wove a story. The fabric of faith was being stitched together, one miracle at a time. They were being invited to embark on a journey that was larger than themselves. With renewed resolve, Margaret took a deep breath. God has a purpose for us, friends. We have only just begun. What if this is just the start of something greater? And in that moment, she knew that her faith was about to face trials, yet she was determined. Would they trust the unfolding of God's plan despite the unknown? What would this journey look like as they ventured boldly into their mission, fully reliant on His grace? In the days that followed, Stowford buzzed with purpose. The warmth of their unfolding community reached even the furthest corners. Margaret felt the pulse of anticipation in the air, a sacred energy that stirred every heart in town. As the sun rose over the hills, Margaret and her fellow villagers prepared for their first outreach dinner, embracing the mission with open arms. The church transformed tables adorned with flowers, steaming pots of food, and laughter overflowing like a river. Each person brought something, a precious piece of themselves, dishes with care, stories wrapped in love, and hope that spanned generations. The evening arrived, and the air was thick with excitement. Margaret stood at the doorway of the church, greeting each guest as they entered, her heart swelling. Among them was the young woman they had prayed for, Sarah, now renewed with light in her eyes. Oh, Margaret! I can hardly believe it. I've found strength and courage just being here. You've shown me what community truly is. Sarah's joy rang clear, like a divine bell echoing hope. Margaret embraced her, the warmth of connection igniting her spirit further. "You are part of our family now, Sarah. This is just the beginning." The night unfolded beautifully. Neighbors gathered at tables with unrehearsed ease, laughter mingling with shared memories. Voices harmonized, stories unfolded like petals of a flower blooming. Sister Agnes moved through the crowd like a mother hen, serving others and encouraging connections. Then came the moment of testimony. As the room quieted, Margaret sensed the divine guidance wrapping around them once again. "May I invite you all to share how God has been present in your lives?" she asked, her voice steady yet laden with passion. One by one, villagers stood, their words pouring forth. Old Mr. Jenkins recounted how the community supported him through his illness. Young mothers shared moments of grace during sleepless nights. Each story carried a fragrance of healing and unity, nourishing their spirit as they embraced vulnerability. Then it was Sarah's turn. "I once believed I was alone, lost in the shadows. But tonight, I stand here surrounded by light," she began, holding the attention of every heart. "I learned that the beauty of community is not in our perfection, but in how we rise together, broken yet hopeful." A hush of awe enveloped the room, a deep resonance of truth ringing clear. Margaret's heart swelled with gratitude, tears threatening to spill. This was the divine purpose unfolding before their eyes. As the night continued, laughter intermingled with joy, and the scent of food filled the air. Margaret felt a surge of energy launch from her heart to her fingers, urging her to stand once more. "Let us commit to being the hands and feet of God. Together, we can reach more, heal more," she declared, her voice ringing with fiery conviction. Echoes of agreement filled the space, hearts ignited by the call to action. Plans for future outreach sprang forth, ideas blossoming like wildflowers in spring. Margaret felt their collective faith swell, like the tides drawing strength from the moon. But amidst the joy, whispers of doubt still loomed. What trials awaited them? Could they stay united when challenges pressed upon their seams? That night, beneath the stars twinkling above Stowford, Margaret pondered these very questions. Sitting in stillness, she felt the gentle breeze wrap around her, a quiet reminder that they did not walk this road alone. Days turned into weeks, and Margaret witnessed the tangible impact of their outreach. Neighbors flocked together to support one another, love cascading through actions big and small. Yet, in her heart, a tapestry of concern began to unfold. What if, amid their success, they faltered? One evening, as Margaret kneeled in prayer, a sense of urgency surged within her soul. "Lord, help us remain focused on you. Let our hearts reflect your love, even amidst trials." Moments later, the door burst open, a furious wind swept inside, drawing every eye. An urgent message emerged from the darkness. A neighbor, pale and weary, rushed into the church, trembling. "Come quick," he gasped. "The old barn on the edge of town is ablaze. We need help." The room fell silent. In that moment, Margaret felt the space shift, the air crackled with purpose. "We must go," she urged. Quickly, hands grasped candles and lanterns. As they moved outside, the urgency transformed their sense of community into a firestorm of intent. "It is time to show our real faith," shouted one villager. With Margaret leading the charge, they raced to the barn. The sight that met their eyes was daunting, a visceral blaze consuming the wooden structure, flames licking the night sky. Fear clawed at Margaret briefly, yet it melted away as the steadfast faces of her neighbors surrounded her, a solid force working together in concert. They formed a human chain, rushing to pull valuables from the burn. Each carried connection, a testament to their commitment, a thread in a larger tapestry full of divine purpose. Though smoke filled the air, what illuminated the darkness was the courage they bore. They fought fear with love, responding to the call that ignited their hearts to action. As dawn broke, the flames diminished, but the power of their unity remained radiant. Exhausted yet euphoric, they stood in awe, witnessing the embodiment of faith in action, hands and hearts intertwined. Margaret turned to face her community, powerful affirmation glimmering in their eyes. Together, We are not merely a group of believers, we are the living church. In trials and triumphs, our love will keep us strong. Powerful cheers erupted as warmth flooded their spirits like wildfire. As they returned to Stowford that morning, Margaret looked around, recognizing that each challenge faced together only deepened their bond. Every moment, every struggle told the story of a community rising, stitched together by grace and unfaltering faith. In those early moments of dawn, Margaret felt the divine spark ignite once more, blossoming with promise. As she stepped forward, she knew this was not the end, but a beautiful new beginning. With the world laid before them and the Holy Spirit guiding each step, Margaret whispered a prayer of gratitude for their unified journey, ready to embrace the unfolding story of their lives. And so, dear friends, we invite you to subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss any exclusive faith stories that are yet to unfold. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, to spread this message of hope far and wide. Comment below your reactions and testimonies about this incredible journey through faith. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the manifestation of God's love. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Be the light that shines bright, just as God lights our paths.